New on NFL Live from Schefter. According to ESPN sources, the Green Bay Packers are trading wide receiver Dontayvion Wicks to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for a 2026 fifth-round pick and a 2027 sixth-round pick. He's going to sign a one-year deal, $12.5 million extension with the Eagles per his agent, David Mulligetta. Okay. What do you think, Mina?
Very Eaglesy. I'll start there in taking a player who has at times flashed some high highs. Dontayvion, there's been games truly where he has looked like a legit threat downfield, making plays with the ball in his hands. And then there's been games where he's disappeared. There's been drops. But Philadelphia, don't worry, this is not your A.J. Brown replacement if they're going that route.
Exactly.
They did need a wide receiver 3, though, and this gives them an option there at very low cost. As you saw there, it's a late-round pick swap. And these don't always work for Howie Roseman, but he keeps swinging at them, and I love him for it.
Yeah, I was told we were going to talk fake trades today, not real trades, so I have to think about this one for a minute. No, I really am excited by this because you see Howie Roseman take these kind of swings on these low-cost receivers. We saw it a couple years ago. They traded for Jahan Dotson, a former first-round pick, but a guy who was going to be making very little salary over the next couple of years to be their third wide receiver. A few years earlier, it was Dorial Green-Beckham. That move obviously did not work out quite as well. But it's this idea of, with wide receivers now making $30+ million a year at the very top. Even your Alec Pierces, your maybe borderline 1-2s making $28 million a year. There's real value in getting a rookie contract player, although Wicks is signing a one-year extension, even at $12.5 million for next year. That's not a ton of money for a player who can be, like you said, a difference maker for a few games a year. You don't have to be an every week star player to make that salary work at the NFL level at wide receiver these days. So I do think it's a logical move. Couple of day 3 picks, not going to be the end of the world. Kind of surprised the Packers maybe were willing to move on from Dontayvion Wicks at this price tag.
I think the Packers are fine with it. It's a very crowded receiver room. The joke a couple years ago was they didn't have a number 1 receiver. They had a bunch of number 2s. Well, some of those guys have been demoted to number 3, and Wicks is one of those guys. Mina mentioned the entire receiving core had problems with drops. Jordan Love, I think, lost the most yards to drops the last few years. It's been maddening to watch. But Wicks going to Philadelphia makes tons of sense. They're a traits-based team when it comes to these sort of flyers. Wicks has traits. Again, Mina said it, I'll reiterate it. Eagles fans, don't panic. This has nothing to do with A.J. Brown.
Exactly. By the way, to your point, look at this wide receiver room, just how crowded it is. And as Schefter points out, the Packers have also seen Romeo Doubs leave in free agency. Yes, we can all settle down. But it's fun. Howie Roseman getting us going. So you can see that our draft analysts are high on him. We have Matt Miller, Field Yates, and Mel Kiper having him at 5, Jordan Reed at 7, and then Peter Schrager down to 12. Mina, do you think today's defensive schemes increase the value of a versatile safety like Downs?
It's hard not to feel that way after watching the team that won the Super Bowl, the Seattle Seahawks, use a very versatile safety, Nicky Manwari, who played multiple positions to great effect, including on their playoff run. But I think it's important to distinguish sort of the different types of versatility at the safety position. Manwari is closer to like a Kyle Hamilton, where you have him in the box. The versatility he brings is as a blitzer in addition to covering tight ends and running backs at times, versus safeties who play more the post and use that versatility to disguise your attentions post-snap. Really useful, again, something you see a lot increasingly across the NFL against quarterbacks to make them hold on to the football when they turn their back to the defense to change the picture for him. And Downs, to me, is that type of safety. He's someone you can trust to play the post as well as play strong safety. He is closer to like a Brian Branch type, I would say, than an Manwari or Kyle Hamilton, in part because of his size. He's not that large. He's not a freak athlete, but he is an outrageously intelligent football player, always in the right position to make plays both against the pass and the run. So I think for whatever team that takes him, that is the best way to use him, to utilize his versatility. And I do think he can be an impact starter immediately in the NFL.
Yeah, you mentioned Manwari, and that is to me the really interesting part about how teams are approaching the safety position. The Seahawks played their nickel or dime defense about 95% of the time last year, most of any team in football by a significant margin. And that's what defenses in an ideal world want to do. They want to play light boxes, they want to play with their nickel and dime packages, help take away the big plays, but you need a safety who can hold up against the run to do that. And Downs, to me, he's not Neiman Warrior, like you said, in terms of his physicality, but the intelligence, the ability to know where to spill the runs to where to fit the runs, if he's going to be playing on the line of scrimmage, his ability to tackle. He's a very good tackler as well. All of that adds up. Maybe move another safety into the box because you have a guy you trust playing center field in Downs. But that ability to play with your 3 safety set as your primary defense is something the vast majority of NFL defenses want to do. They want to keep that third linebacker off the field because all the great offenses, the McVay offense, the Shanahan offense, the Reed offense, all they want to do is attack that third linebacker over and over and over again with the passing game. So if you can pull that off the way the Seahawks did, safety is an incredibly underrated and incredibly valuable position.
I'm with you, Bill. Safety is undervalued, especially in the draft, because teams don't define what it is well enough. You're basically a jack of all trades all over the field, and Caleb Downs is the epitome of that. 44 snaps last year at Ohio State at the line of scrimmage alone. He was the only guy in this draft class who had 100 snaps at basically every part of the field, in the box, in the slot, deep safety. He was all over the place. And to me, you guys mentioned how smart he is. It's the football education he got. He started at Alabama under Nick Saban, was smart enough to go learn from maybe the best DB coach in history. Then he goes to Ohio State, wins the national championship under Jim Knowles. Then gets an NFL education his last year with Matt Patricia. So he's done it all. He's played it all. He's seen so many good offenses. His tape is unbelievable. He rarely makes a mistake. But yes, ask the teams that passed on Kyle Hamilton whether or not safety is undervalued. Ask the teams that the 34 of them, 34 picks went by before Nick Warrior last year. And so I just feel like it's becoming a more no-brainer decision to take these guys as soon as possible because what they do as far as changing the picture of your defense.
Yeah, but to your point, only 6 safeties in the common draft era, so we're going all the way back to the late 60s, have even gone in the top 5. We haven't seen one taken in the top 5 since Eric Berry back in 2010. We'll see if that changes this year. Meanwhile, Bill, we had a lot of fun with this yesterday, so let's do it again. So Bill put out his annual all trades mock. He proposes trades for every single pick in the draft. I love it. So let's get into a couple. This one's fun. We're going to start with the Chiefs trading up to pick number 4 to get edge rusher David Bailey, Bill.
Yeah, I think they need that second edge rusher next to George Karlaftis. Of course, Chris Jones, the focal point of that defense, but can they get that guy with bend? They're going to have to move up to get David Bailey, I believe. They give up 9 and 40 here, get that 4th overall pick and a couple mid-round picks back. But to me, I know they have needs in the secondary. I know they have a couple guys up front they feel good about, but that's that really bendy edge rusher they just don't have. Karlaftis is not that kind of player. And so every good team has a great defensive line. You went up front. The Chiefs, they're struggling a little bit to do it the way they did maybe a couple of years ago. So I think about that trade up. It's a lot to give up, but this is their chance to get a superstar player at a premium position towards the top of the draft.
Mina, what do you think?
Well, first, I love this for the Tennessee Titans, and their phone lines should be open. To me, they are the team who should be looking to trade down the most and acquire draft picks so that they can throw multiple picks at improving the offense, not just one position. They need offensive linemen. They need wide receivers for Cam Ward. They need tight ends. So the more draft picks the Titans can get, the better. It is a lot to give up for Kansas City, and I think probably how you feel about Bailey determines that. But I will say this to Bill's point. They have multiple needs, but I do think the Chiefs are more likely to get impactful or starting level receivers and corners later in the draft versus the edge position. I have the top 3 in a tier, and there's a pretty significant drop off to the next one. So that would help justify this kind of move.
I love this for the Titans. You mentioned it, Mina. They need a lot of picks because they need a lot of players. And I think that when you start looking at how this draft is shaping up, somebody really good is going to be at 9. Whether that's the aforementioned Caleb Downs, Ruben Bain dropping because of arm length. There's going to be somebody there. But the Chiefs should stay there as well. I don't think that David Bailey is worth the premium. I think whatever you're going to get at 9 is going to be fine there. I just think the draft is shaping up with the amount of tackles rising up the board. We'll see what happens with wide receivers. Obviously, Mendoza going number 1. 1. There's going to be a really good defensive player available at 9. Both these teams should want to be there. That's why the Chiefs should say no to this one.
Okay, let's go to another one. This one between the Ravens and the Dolphins. Bill, break it down for us.
Yeah, we're using Chop Robinson to move up. We're getting Chop Robinson for the Ravens. Dolphins moving up from 30 to 14, getting ahead of the Jets, other teams who have needs in the secondary. Chop Robinson's going to be an addition for that Ravens pass rush we talked about yesterday. That was a mess last season. They had Trey Hendrickson, but Chop Robinson was a guy who, as a rookie, was top 10 in the NFL, not amongst rookies, amongst all players in quick pressure rate. Never really seemed to get settled last year, and it was very interesting. When the Dolphins have talked about their core with their new regime, it's been Devon Achane, it's been Jordan Brooks, Aaron Brewer. They have not mentioned Chop Robinson, their first-round pick from a couple of years ago. So if the Ravens can add a premium edge rush prospect, still the first-round pick, move down a bit, feels like that could be a win-win for both sides.
All right, Kev, you buying this one?
Bill, yesterday I compared you to the Michael Jordan of fake trades, and you're officially in your Washington Wizards era. I do not like this trade for Baltimore Ravens. Let's start there. I don't think getting Chop Robinson, who is 2 years closer to being paid in free agency than a rookie this year, is that much of a difference maker to start dangling a pick swap in the first round. I think a guy like Akeem Mesidor, Kendrick Falk, those guys are going to be available. Even someone like Cassius Howe might be a little early for that. Those guys are going to be available and can give you Chop Robinson level production earlier in their career cheaper. So I don't like this trade. I wouldn't do it if I was the Ravens. You already have Trey Hendrickson if you want a veteran in there at the pass rush. I just feel like they've got so many holes to fill. Having the 30th pick in this draft is a bad idea.
I'm good with Miami doing the trade. I'm less good with Baltimore. I would like them just to stay put, quite frankly, because my view is that at pick 14, there's an opportunity to add an impact player at a position they need. I actually think this draft is positioned really well for Baltimore, who I feel their biggest needs. Yes, they could use another pass rusher. They could use a cornerback. But in the first round, I would go offense, either in the interior of the offensive line, like a Venga Ioane, the guard out of Penn State, or a receiver. We talked about how good some of them are, and I do think they're going to have a really nice choice at 14. This is also a team that we know should be in contention, but does have pretty big goals on offense. So I'd like them to address them with a player who can be impactful on that side of the ball immediately.
Hey, guys, guess what? We have a real trade.